Jim, how would you say your coaching with the safeties is different when you don't have to focus on the cornerbacks as well? Are there certain specifics you're able to get more into?
You're definitely allowed to get into more detail. The game is so much more recognition early, or maybe communication, and the timing of the process changes depending on the calls and the adjustments and things like that. So you're just able to kind of go a lot deeper and talk about different things because it's not as technical pre-snap, right? Whereas corner is so much consistency and technique. There's a lot of coaching points that need to be made to safeties that don't apply until the ball snapped for corners. So you're able to just get a lot deeper and a lot more one-on-one time, right? There's with having more coaches around, having Coach Poe, just the one-on-one day-to-day attention that guys are able to get is huge. And I think we're going to reap the benefits of that this fall.
Steve?
Just wondering overall with your defense, what do you want to see different? Obviously, your defense ranked high in every category last year, but where do you think y'all can get better? And just overall in the spring, what have you seen that's encouraged you from the defense?
I think number one, what I'm looking for is consistency. And we've been able to do that in a number of ways. Consistent production, giving us a chance to win week in and week out. Right. That's the number one thing for it. The playmaking, right? How you change games, how you really impact a game, right? When you look at sacks and TFLs and turnovers and kind of who's involved with that, right? Who are your most dynamic players? That's going to change a little bit. And as you've noticed throughout the years, like some of those numbers, I mean, we may be really high in sacks one year and really low the next year, but statistically kind of getting to the same place. Well, sometimes a couple dynamic players in certain positions will change that. TFLs, right, is another one that we've kind of rode the wave. Some years really good, some years not so great. But we've played really good defense around that. Sometimes you stop the run really well by getting TFLs, and other times it's just by playing technique and you're not seeing those tackles for loss. And I think that's where we try to really find who's that top 11 or really that top group of guys, maybe those key backups that are going to get a decent amount of work. And to me, I like to set the plan up around that and play to their strengths. And, to me, it's finding ways to create vision on the quarterback to hopefully make those turnovers become reality week in and week out at times, or in crucial situations. When we need a big sack, when we need a big TFL, what's the top ways to get there, right? That's what I'm trying to identify in the spring. And a lot of that comes off of who you think is going to be on the field, in those moments.
Jeff?
Yeah, Jim, earlier this spring, when you were talking about guys who are flexible and versatile, you mentioned Toller and Travion Blaylock, but it looks like both guys are out. I'm just curious, will Toller be available for camp? And what do both of those guys need to show you in camp in order to get on the field defensively and get in that rotation for you?
Yeah, I think we're anticipating both guys being back for fall camp. Obviously, Titus was going to be a huge spring for him, just to continue to grow in the defense and for us to learn more about him. He missed a significant amount of time. Trey's just been a little bit just missing a couple practices here at the end. So for the most part, he was available this spring and able to take huge strides forward. They are two guys that bring that versatility, the ability to cover, the ability to play in space, but also a physical aspect at the line of scrimmage, blitzing, different things like that. So kind of opens up the world when you have guys like that. Sometimes it's a corner, right? You look at Natrell Jamerson was kind of the same mold of, well, he played corner, he played nickel, and all of a sudden he kind of ends up in that safety position, and you use his athleticism to create some matchups that are, more in your favor. Hoping to find guys that fit that mold. Jam was pretty special for us this senior year, and trying to find guys that are flexible, right? To me, what I hit with our safeties a lot is there's very few, when the farther you play this game, there's very few guys that I would say, man, he's just a safety. Right. There's safeties that have the ability to play like corners. There's safeties that have the ability to play like inside backers or outside linebackers. you have to have two, right? You have to be able to do two, or kind of the age of football that we're in with all the spread, all the RPO, you can create some issues. So I always trying to find what is that. These guys need to be dynamic at the safety position alone. What's next, right? What is that next thing that's going to be your niche to make you stand out and different from the rest?
Colton?
Jim, we've seen Colin and Scott play quite a bit throughout their career here, but maybe not as much together until this spring. How do you think those guys play off each other in that top unit?
I think they complement each other really well. And my job in the spring for all of our safeties is to get them out of their comfort zone and make sure they play with different people and ask them to do different roles. And then once we get in season, kind of tightening up what they do best. But I think they work well together. It's been a couple of years now that they've been in the secondary together, right? In that rotation of kind of 3 or 4 guys that's got the majority of the snaps. So comfort level between them is very high, and I like what they bring as a group. And it's finding who's next to really step in and kind of balance that group out. And to me, a big part of college football is not necessarily taking snaps off of a guy because lack of production. It's to allow guys to just play as hard as possible and know that, you can impact this thing on special teams and we can get you a handful of snaps off on defense, right? You can play as hard as possible and we'll get you a blow because I have a lot of faith in that next guy coming in there. So you're going to get that, right? It's kind of building in that mentality of you're going to get little breaks within the game. So kind of empty the tank every series. And, once the game gets on the line, we're going to get guys on there that have a great feel that week and in that game plan of how to execute in crunch time.
Jake?
Jim, I know Preston Zachman's still pretty green to the position, obviously, but how has he, and we saw him flash on Saturday with that interception, and then also it looked like a pass breakup in one of the periods too, but how has he adapted to that position from the linebacker spot, and where do you see him fitting in that backfield?
Yeah, I love the move, getting Preston in that safety group. Coming out of high school, you knew he was an athlete, right? Played quarterback, played defense, kind of a hybrid safety backer. Great wrestler in high school, right? So you knew the athleticism was there. It's just kind of going, all right, what's his niche, right? Where does he actually fit in this defense? We put him at the linebacker position and felt like as his career went on, just kind of seeing how we thought his body was going to develop, we think that safety room is going to be the right move for him. And he has a great knack for the game. He's got a good feel, understands what we do, the adjustments, was able to transition to safety pretty quickly as far as alignment and assignment type of football. And I think you're seeing just kind of some of the natural ability and playmaking. He's around the football. He knows where to get his eyes. He understands how to read a quarterback. I think playing quarterback in high school helps him. So he kind of understands how, offenses try to manipulate safeties and use their eyes to move you and different things. And he's done a great job, even though it's limited experience this spring as far as the number of practices. He's got a good amount of reps and understands our defense. He did a great job last year of learning what we do, kind of learning why we do it. And he's able to apply everything he learned in that linebacker room to the safety position.
Dave?
Hey, Jim, with the NFL draft here a few days away, I hope you don't mind indulging me for a second on one of your former players, Eric Burrell. Just kind of wondering, what attributes does he have that might be attractive to an NFL team? And kind of along that same line, does he remind you of yourself at all at that age? Just that he doesn't have the optimal so-called NFL measurables, but maybe has the work ethic and football IQ?
I don't know why you had to say that about me, but
sorry, Jim.
Okay.
Your 40 times are actually pretty comparable, amazingly.
The 40 time they had to me from was my sophomore year in college. So I don't know where you're bringing up 40 times, man. You guys make stuff up on the internet. But no, I loved EB. Obviously he was dynamic as a playmaker for us. It's kind of funny. You start seeing guys put together little highlights of themselves and stuff as they leave. And you kind of forget sometimes how many plays and just how many different types of plays he made throughout his time, whether it was in coverage, man coverage, zone coverage, playing in the post, blitzing, he made a lot of big plays in this defense, and he's dynamic that way. Understands who he is. You kind of talk the limitation. He knows where he thrives as a football player. The physical aspect of being able to throw his body around and track the football. That is a skill in itself that not everybody has. And he's found a way his entire time here to get close to that football, and good things were happening. So love EB, man. He poured everything into this program, took advantage of his opportunity on and off the field. And as you guys know, he's great on a team, man. His teammates love him. He has their back. He's a great leader, and hopefully finds a spot in the NFL here real soon.
Adam?
Yeah, Jim, you've been here to see kind of the recruiting and development of this defense, or pretty much everybody out there. I'm just curious how the group looks to you now as opposed to when you first arrived, and if there are any elements that are more noticeable when you watch even a practice or a scrimmage, the defense now versus when you first arrived.
Obviously, there's transition just with the coaches, right? I think, coming in myself, just the DBs kind of under Justin Wilcox and us taking over from what kind of the foundation Dave had built. We each have our little flavor on how we see things, how we call the game, right? Little tweaks within, the defense, and then you look at the individual positions going from Tim Tibesar to Bobby April, getting Coach Bostad in here, now Ross. Just seeing how each individual coach and their personality, I think, putting their own stamp on the positions, and to me, kind of allowing the flexibility within what we do to let them do that and coach it their way. And, understanding as coaches, we have to do a great job of communicating, because in the long run, I could care less exactly what the call is or the technique used to get it done, as long as we're able to be consistent with it and be dynamic, and identify the playmakers and help put them in position to impact games in a big way. So definitely seeing a lot of change throughout the course of the years, but the foundation really hasn't. The foundation has been pretty consistent ever since I got here. The type of guys, we have some dynamic playmakers. We've done a great job recruiting to what this scheme is, and the fitting guys in, I guess, to where those positions are that you can kind of isolate the most dynamic guys. And year in and year out, it looks a little bit different. And I think that's what I'm most proud of, and kind of happy with the coaching staff as far as how we've been able to get that done.
All right, got time for a couple more. We'll go back to Jeff.
Yeah, Jim, I think you said before the 19 season, you thought Scott Nelson was ready to have a big year, and obviously that got cut short. So I'm just curious what you saw from him last year, and with regards to that injury, a lot of guys say it's a full year before you're really back to where you were. What have you seen from him this spring in terms of physically with that knee? Is he completely back and ready to build on what he did last year?
First off, I think he had a huge year last year. You look back at what he was able to do. Unfortunate that it got cut short, because you just don't see players sustain it for that 12, 13, 14 games, right? Full season. And I think he was ready to do that. I mean, you just look at Michigan game alone, right? The first game he was back, and you get an interception, first play of the game, right? Getting a TFL in the backfield. I think he was playing so much faster and more confident than he was even going into that year before. You felt he was ready to make that transition. Obviously it got cut short, but he learned a lot from his freshman year when he was playing a lot of football, and it just took a while to come to fruition. And he's carried it over this spring. From a physical aspect, I think he broke every record back in the weight room from before he tore his ACL. So you're starting to see, I think, the confidence in his body, and he's able to push himself and do things that maybe even last year he was, not quite sure he was ready for. Making plays helps with that confidence. And now you're really starting to see the belief that he is not only where he was before that ACL, he's significantly past it, and the consistency in his play and his playmaking showing up every day.
All right, we'll wrap things up for Jim with one more from Jesse.
Jim, you mentioned before how well Scott and Colin play off each other. What specifically have you seen from Colin this spring and kind of trying to fill the role that Eric had? And then also, I just wanted to ask about John Torchio, since we haven't mentioned him. He's gotten a lot of reps this spring. Where has he grown?
Yeah. So first with Colin, the one thing is it's going to be physical. It's going to be physical football. He's going to play as fast as possible every play. So just giving him little things to play with a little bit more control at times early in the down, right? Rather than just turning that switch on as early as possible. So a little bit more control at times early. So then when you know that you're ready to let it go, you're right. He did a great job for us. We were really the last 2 years, you look at that his snaps, we're a significantly better team when he's on the field, right? And he's always been in that rotation, but from a physicality standpoint and from a play speed and just kind of making things right at times. And somebody miss a tackle and he shows up and gets it on the ground. Some little things that he doesn't really get credit for. It's hard to see if you're not a coach, but you kind of helped set the tone, I should say, of those defenses the last couple of years. And I think when him and Scott are on the field together, they love to communicate. They love to handle different levels of the defense. And to me, the biggest thing I see when they're on the field together, they each kind of take a deep breath because they know they don't have to do it themselves. It's pushing them to work with other guys to maintain that level of communication, but that also when they play together, they said you see that they know they only have to do so much, and I think it frees them up from a playmaking standpoint because they're not always trying to take care of as many people themselves, which I like both. I like both of that. It's great qualities to have. Torch is a guy. I think he was another one last year that really started to grow and was deserving of getting more playing time. He played more 2 years ago, probably on defense than last year. And the season getting cut short, I think a number of guys, you look at Titus, you look at Trey Blaylock, Torch, they were all kind of in that boat of, as this thing goes on and guys get nicked up and there's injuries here, they were ready to step in, and I didn't feel like we were going to have a drop off. Really didn't feel like we were going to have drop off in our play. So excited about him. He's gotten better in every way here this spring. So I'm excited. He's playing with more urgency. I think you're seeing his body and kind of figuring out where he is at the college level with his body and starting to trust that and playing with a lot of confidence. And he's another guy that the ball finds, and he does a great job of impacting the practices.